Hi, everyone. I'm Sara Payne Scarbro, co-founder of the West Virginia Grant Resource Centers. Welcome to our third episode of the Resource Roundup interview series. This series was launched to connect partners across West Virginia and to learn about what everyone is doing, and so that we can build stronger connections through Appalachia. Today, it's our privilege to host Chris Chiles. He's the executive director of the Region 2 Planning and Development Council. Welcome, Chris. Thank you so much for carving some time out to join us today. And I'd like to start by learning a little bit about Region 2. What do you guys do over there?
Yeah, no. Well, thank you for having me on, Sarah, and thank you for making the time for me. It's an honor to be here. At Region 2 Planning and Development Council, we're one of 11 planning and development councils across the state. We were created by the West Virginia legislature in 1971, so we're a quasi-governmental agency. We're that behind-the-scenes sort of middle ground that no one really quite knows who we are or what we do. But nonetheless, we're an integral role, or play an integral role in a lot of economic development and infrastructure related activities across the state. So we cover 6 counties here in southwestern West Virginia. Our office is here in Huntington and Cabell County, and we also cover Mason County and Wayne County, Lincoln, Logan, and Mingo counties.
Well, that's wonderful. And I love the regional approach to economic development. I believe that we're all stronger working together. And so, can you talk a little bit about your organizational priorities?
Yeah, absolutely. We were set up to be, the regional councils were set up to be really offer technical assistance to sort of provide that, fill in that missing gap for a lot of local communities, to fill in what they may lack when it comes to organizational or staff capacity, knowledge and expertise, especially when it comes to grants and the grant world, which, as you know, is its own culture almost. It takes years and years to really feel like you got a good handle on it. The joke here in our office is that the answer to every question is it depends. It depends on the funding agency, it depends on where the project is, it depends on 20 other things. So a lot of that information it's based on institutional knowledge that, quite frankly, it's hard for a small local, municipality to have someone that's a full-time person dedicated to that type of work. So over the years, we really became entrenched in infrastructure projects here at Region 2, especially water, sewer, stormwater, and more recently broadband infrastructure projects. So we're the ones that are working, with the public utility or the municipality or the county commission or whoever it may be, working with them on the ground level for the procurement of all your professional services, your engineers, your accountants, your lawyers, and then ultimately when a project gets to construction for your contractors. And then once a project is moving, one of our most important roles is ensuring that people get paid and people get paid in a timely manner, drawing down those grant funds. As you know, when a grant is awarded for any type of project, the funding agency doesn't just cut you a check and say, here you are, spend it wisely. There's a lot of reporting requirements. There's a lot of forms that need to be filled out before you're requesting, in some cases, hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in a reimbursement. And so over the decades here in this office, that's a world that we've become very well knowledgeable in, regardless of who the funding agency may be.
So you mentioned like working with local governments and some other entities. And so you cover really the broad spectrum of pre-award, like kind of before you submit the funding request or before you get the grant in. But you also do post-award, and you kind of touched upon that a little bit. Could you pull it all together and kind of give listeners an overview of your holistic approach to services?
Yeah, thank you. So we offer everything from kind of the beginning conception of the idea all the way to the completion and the ribbon cutting and even once the ribbon is cut, there's still a closeout oftentimes on the grant that, there's additional work that may be done. And so we offer a wide range of those services. And, we have a board like anybody else, and our board is primarily comprised of the mayors and the county commissioners and their representatives for the communities that we serve. So we are directly accountable to the residents and to the communities we serve through their local elected officials through our board. Um, so, when a project comes in, and I'm going to stick to a water or sewer project because that's a lot of what we do. It's not exclusively what we do, but it is a lot of what we do because that's where that's where the biggest need is. So, when a public utility or even just a John Q. Public out in rural rural southwestern West Virginia might need water to their house because they've been relying on well water and the well water is contaminated and they need public water. So we work with that public utility to again identify a engineering firm to start what's called a preliminary engineering report, which is basically just a fancy way of saying they go through and they identify what the need is. They identify how you would serve those folks, how much it would cost. You have an accountant on board that talks about where that money might come from. In many cases, there's a loan component involved, especially when you're talking about a public utility, and that's going to, you pay back the debt service on that loan through increased rates on the customers. And so that's certainly a balancing act that needs to be done. And we work directly with the public utility, guiding them through that process, being the liaison between the state and the federal agencies, whether it's the agencies that have oversight over that project or just the funding agencies that may have grant or loan money in that project. And we can also be a liaison between the professional services like the engineers and the accountants and the lawyers as well. And then again, once those invoices come in and we're handling all of the reporting and the drawdowns and everything to make sure that folks are getting paid. Another type of project that we've tried to work on is related to infrastructure is just site readiness for economic development sites. I know you've got a strong background and many years of experience in that, and that's one of the I think the biggest misnomers about a site that is a good potential site for a manufacturer or industrial firm to go in there, or whatever it may be. But if you don't have that infrastructure there, that site is not as valuable as we may think it is. And the perfect example of that is where Nucor is now in Mason County in Apple Grove. That site had been the premier economic development site for decades, for all the reasons that Nucor is there now. 1,000 acres out of the floodplain, but right along the river with rail access, with State Route 2 there with easy access to a 4-lane both in either direction. A willing landowner, which oftentimes is a big hurdle. So why wasn't this developed by somebody else 30 years ago? Because there was not public sewer there. It has water and gas and everything else, electric, but there wasn't public sewer. And so that was, Mason County missed out on a lot of opportunities because of that. And, back in 2019, 2020, before most people had even heard of Nucor or knew what it was, Region 2 staff in collaboration with the Mason County Development Authority and Mason County Commission, we wrote a grant to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for $1 million that we were successful in obtaining to start that work for sewer service there at the site. So, we were able to start doing a lot of the upfront, designing the system, all of the environmental and the archaeological and the SHPO and all those things that can delay a project were already ongoing, so that when Nucor, became interested in that site, and I wasn't in those meetings, that was certainly well above my pay grade. But I have to believe that that was a big selling point to be able to say we don't have sewer there today, but we can tell you definitively all these things have already been done. It's being engineered now. We know what the cost is. We can guarantee you're going to have sewer service there when your doors are open.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is boots on the ground where the rubber hits the road, economic development, right? I mean, this is critical infrastructure improvements. It sets the strong foundation for recruitment, and it's very important work that you're doing. And again, this is Sara Payne Scarbro talking with Chris Chiles with Region 2, and you, the West Virginia Grant Resource Center, we pride ourselves on a strong partnership with region planning and development councils across West Virginia. And, when we receive clients, there's an intake form on um, wvgrantcenters.com. And when you go there and you hit it, that you need help and you want our services, one of the questions we pose is, have you already pitched this idea, this concept, this solution to your area region planning development councils? Can you talk a little bit back from your perspective why partnerships like this, like these, are just so critical?
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So I don't, partnerships are, it's, in many instances, it's the most critical piece, especially for here in rural Appalachia, where we just, quite frankly, we don't have a lot of the resources the rest of the country may have. We don't have a lot of the local capacity that a lot of the rest of the country may have. How many, municipalities do we have here just in our 6 counties? The mayors, are part-time mayors. They have day jobs. And with if you have 1,000 people in your municipality, you may be a good sized municipality in West Virginia, and that's certainly not the case in a lot of other parts of the country. So, figuring out a way that we can be as efficient as possible and effective as possible to meet those needs is crucial, and partnerships is one of the best ways to do it. I've this is not my line. I'm borrowing it from someone else, but that communication leads to collaboration, and collaboration leads to trust, and trust leads to partnerships. And so, you've got to come up with that upfront communication and collaboration. Unfortunately, Region 2 and Marshall have done that over the years already, so that the trust was already there, I think, for a lot of those partnerships. But you're right. We've worked very well together, partnered on several grants that are ongoing right now. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. And I think you hit on something interesting. It's everyone has a capacity issue, and it doesn't matter if you're local government, if you're a nonprofit, if you're a business, if you're a university, if you're a region planning development council. We can get tapped out pretty quickly, right? When the demand rolls in, when you're in grant season, when there's a lot of activity and projects going on. And so the fact that we can use and leverage those partnerships to build capacity across our institutions and our organization is also key to economic development. We're such a small state. We don't need to duplicate. We need to complement. And I think that we have a wonderful example of how that collaboration and cooperation can get you farther down toward your goal. Are there any projects from Region 2 that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, thank you. I do have a couple, but before I do, and I'm not just saying this, Sarah. I wrote a few notes before we were talking, and I swear that my last note is complimenting efforts, not duplicating. So you literally took the words right out of my mouth there. Um, so one of the projects that I would have highlighted, and I think I already touched on it, is Apple Grove, is the sewer project there. So obviously Nucor is under construction, and we're going to be providing public sewer there to that site and that the larger area as well. We're expecting obviously the entire Mason County area to really explode here, and that's going to require upgrades to water facilities and capacities and sewer as well. Another project that I want to highlight is just switching a little bit to the south is in Logan and Mingo County. So I mentioned we talked about water and sewer a lot so far, but I mentioned briefly that we also work on a lot of broadband projects, and one of those actually is in Logan and Mingo County. We have a project that's under construction now. That is as a partner. We talk about partnerships. It's a partnership with AEP, Appalachian Power, with Logan and Mingo County commissions and economic development authorities, and with the internet service provider, which was selected to be Gigabeam. So we have federal broadband grant from NTIA. It's about a $19 million grant with a 60 some million-dollar total project where we AEP is in essence providing the middle mile to cover Logan and Mingo counties, and this grant is going in to subsidize the cost to provide that last mile connection to the home. So we're at the end of this project, we will actually have fiber to the premises or to the home or to the business to that location for most, if not all, of Logan and Mingo counties. And this is before BEAD at the federal level was passed under the IIJA, which is kind of is a buzzword. Plenty of news about it right now. So, here very, very soon, months, not years, Logan County and Mingo County are going to have the best broadband in the state. And
And
that's
that's a
part of
game
the,
changer, right? I mean, that's the critical infrastructure that you need to sustain economic prosperity. And that's fantastic.
and it is an economic development component. There's no doubt about it. Businesses are clamoring for better internet. You can't work from home if you don't
Right.
have if you don't have internet. I remember in a previous life, I was in a rural town here in West Virginia, and I happened to next, above a coffee store was a woodworking shop, and I just had some time and went in there, and was meeting the lady that owned the woodworking shop, and she had just absolutely beautiful things that were homemade, and she partnered with, she had high school students from doing work as well and was selling them, and Sarah, she didn't have the bandwidth to upload pictures on Facebook to be able to sell these pieces. So if you didn't physically go to the shop, which was not easy to get to, you couldn't buy a piece because she didn't have the cell phone or the internet service available to be able just to upload pictures to a Facebook page.
Mm.
And so that's the type of entrepreneur, that's the type of small business that we really want to try to incentivize as much as we can here in West Virginia. So we're really excited about this project in Logan and Mingo County.
Well, it sounds like you're doing amazing work, and we appreciate it very much. And we appreciate you coming on and talking to us about your entity and how you're moving the ball forward for the West Virginia. It takes many hands to make light work, so we're on this together. We appreciate your time very much, and we appreciate you tuning in to the third episode of Resource Roundup. Catch us next time, and we'll see you soon.